What's up, everybody? This is Christopher the Artist here, and I hope you all are ready for this one. This is the start of a tutorial series on me building some clone trooper armor based off of the armor that is from the Star Wars Clone Wars TV series and movie from beginning in 2008. What we have here before you is Hasbro's replica of the DC-15 blaster rifle that is seen in Attack of the Clones, as well as both the 2003 and 2008 Star Wars Clone Wars series. This rifle maybe spans about 2/3 of the actual length of the blaster rifle used in the films. So it's not quite the proper replica size, but it's pretty darn close, and I think it's going to be awesome. And what we're going to do to this thing is we're going to do what I call Star Warsize the weapon. This is going to be the first part, and I will actually have, for this Clone Trooper costume, I'm going to have multiple weapons for this cosplay, but this is the first one. This is the big bad boy. This is the targeting rifle, the big blaster rifle that all the clones start out with, and it's actually pretty decent and whatnot. Now, some background on this. I said this is from Hasbro when, basically, unfortunately, Hasbro does not make these anymore. They have since discontinued it. I don't understand, I don't remember as to why or whatever. I don't know if they made enough sales or whatnot. But I managed to find it. This one, it was a very pretty penny. I think I spent about $150 on this. All of this basically, and it didn't even include the accessories and whatnot. But we're gonna build those accessories probably out of like styrene or something like that later, when we get all that going. So like the flashlight, the extra magazines, all that kind of stuff. So as I said, we're gonna Star Warsize this weapon, and this actually includes multiple different materials on how to do this, and the same methods that I go through in this video can actually be applied to the other Hasbro weapons that you can buy at like Target or Walmart or wherever they sell them. So what you're going to need to do first is you're going to need, obviously, your weapon, whichever one that may be, and then you're also going to need sanding paper. I would highly suggest using a 60 grit sanding paper, as a lot of what we're going to knock off on the weapon has to do with all the warning labels and all the seams and whatnot from the plastic. We don't want any of that. We want this to look like a very clean and smooth weapon, as if it was factored from Kamino itself or something like that, or wherever the clones got their weapons and whatnot, basically. We want this to look like it's off of the manufacturing line with that. But we also want some battle scoring with this as well. We want it to look as if it's seen battle. So the first material you're gonna need is sanding paper, more specifically sanding sticks. You can usually find these at hardware stores and whatnot. And if you can't find sanding sticks, what you can actually do is take popsicle sticks, which are like $2 for like a pack of like a 500 or 1,000 kind of thing. It's ridiculous how many you can get for so cheap. But you need some popsicle sticks. You need to cut some strips of 60 grit sanding paper, just into strips, glue those together, and then you have your sanding sticks. It's that simple. The next part you're going to need, and this is completely optional. What I need to explain first is that this is an electronic weapon, meaning that you pull the trigger and it usually makes sound. The sounds are really, really weird. I'm not going to lie. They're not great. In fact, the only variation is that with the pistol stuff, into each. Basically, you're able to customize the weapon however you want into each section, and each customization has its own sound, and all the sounds are weird. So I've removed all the electronics from that. But the material that I am going to use to cover up the screw hole specifically is Bondo auto filler. This stuff is absolutely great and model makers and prop artists have been using this stuff for a very long time. If it's the first time for you to use Bondo, word of warning, it is smelly as well as toxic. So proper ventilation is a must, as well as proper breathing apparatus, unless you want cancer or something like that, which I don't think anybody wants that stuff. I hope not. But that's a must for using Bondo. And as I'll go on later in the video, a little bit of Bondo goes a very long way for a lot of work. So there's that. The next thing that you're going to need, and this is also optional, is either masking tape or painter's tape. For people that want to do like customized paint jobs, you can actually use the tape and use it to cover up areas that you don't want painted. I'm not going to worry about that in this video, as I'm pretty much going to just paint the whole thing black. I mean, that's all there is to it for me. And then lastly, of course, you're going to need some spray paint. And I would recommend spray paint because that's going to give you the most even coat throughout the weapon. I would not suggest hand painting this. I would suggest spray painting it. And this is Krylon's Color Master. It includes both a paint and a primer. And then it is a flat black. You don't want to do glossy, you don't want to do the satin, as those finishes will not be quite the matte black finish as they are in the movies. This is going to give you the best chance of replicating that. And other than that, I think we're ready to get started. Hope you all enjoy the video, guys, and I'll see you in a few seconds. Okay, folks, so here's the first part of the weapon. First off, you're going to want to actually put on the Bondo auto filler first before anything else. The reason being is because this stuff will leave a texture on the weapon when it's dry, and it's best to put that on before you sand the entirety of the weapon. As I've done, as you can see, I am working on trying to sand off the lettering and the warning labels, basically, that are perforated on the weapon itself, making sure that those are pretty flat against the weapon. You don't need to get this exactly flat, but you need to get it flat enough to where when the paint covers over the weapon itself, that it will look pretty smooth, and the lettering should be pretty well hidden. I would say there's maybe a little less than a millimeter, actually maybe even less than that, like far less than that, surface-wise, between the lettering and the actual surface of the weapon, and it should be all set to go from there. Right now I'm also working on trying to sand the entirety of the weapon itself, going over all the Bondo areas as well as going over just the surface in general. The reason being is because the plastic, which is similar to that of styrene, which I believe either Hasbro used for this weapon or it's a very similar equivalent. Basically, if you don't sand the surface, the paint will not accept. You need to make sure that the surface is abrasive enough so that the paint will actually stick to the weapon itself. You don't want it chipping off or anything like that. So I'm just going over the entirety. I actually do end up breaking it into sections and going over that and making sure that all these surfaces are sanded. So the next part is going to be, well, up in just a second. One part I forgot to note at the beginning of the video that you're going to actually need to do is take a wet paper towel and wet down the surface area of the entirety of the gun itself, and then you're going to want to take a dry paper towel and dry that moisture all off. The reason being is because there are particles that come up from the sanding process, as well as particles from the Bondo. What I should have done is I should have had a breathing apparatus, and it's probably recommended that you do that prior to actually sanding, but I did have at the very least ventilation with a window open and a fan on. But this is critical to do because you don't want any particles or any loose particles like that interfering with the paint job, which we will cover in just a second. Okay, so you see in this part here that I've broken the gun up into several different sections. This is because when painting, as you can see, I'm doing I'm figuring out the painting process there. When I break up this weapon into sections, I can more easily control and rotate the gun on different axes and whatnot, and get everything covered fairly evenly. If I had a setup where I could install a coat hanger and hang it from the gun's sights, basically, I would have done that as opposed to this setup. But this still works if you don't have a coat hanger to hang the weapon on and whatnot. Also, another thing I would recommend, as I'm finding out in this process here, you want to do thin coats no matter what, but I would suggest not actually getting a paint with primer already in it. I'm finding that even though this texture later on still works, the paint and the primer make a very interesting mix when it comes to application. It still works, but I would suggest actually just getting a can where it's just the paint and there's no primer in it. That would help for easier application and just overall looks and success. It still turned out well, so I'll show the end product in just a second. Okay guys, welcome back, and there she is. Amazing, the transformation. There is going to be a little bit of touch-up work that I need to do on this as far as the black goes. There's some areas that are a little bit thinner in others. But there is the DC-15 blaster rifle all painted up and Star Warsized. What I'm going to do after the paint dries and everything, because there's still some areas that are wet, like I guess there's also areas that I need to touch up. I'm going to basically put a little bit of glue all in the seams and whatnot on each of the parts and each of the sections so that it's all tight and nicely fit. And then I'm going to take a silver Sharpie and go over some of the areas, give a little bit of that metal scoring and whatnot that we talked about earlier. And then after that, put some clear coat on it, and then it should be ready for Comic-Con or WonderCon or whatever con people are going to go to. For me, it'd probably be Comic-Con. So, but this is how it looks. Hope you all enjoyed this episode, guys. Hope you all learned something. I know that my fingers are 100% dirty. And of course, as I mentioned, make sure that the coats are thin as possible. Do a little bit at a time. Wait 10 minutes or so, let that dry, then do the next coat. It's better to do a bunch of little even coats and thin coats at that than to just lay waste on there and whatnot. You can waste a lot of paint and a lot of time and whatnot doing that. So, but I hope you all enjoyed this episode, guys. I hope you all enjoyed this tutorial. There will be more on the costume armor and whatnot at some point. And I hope you all enjoyed the series. Thank you all for watching, guys. Hope smash that like button, comment in the comment section. If you're new, don't forget to subscribe. And may the